Welcome to another online lecture on procurement and global sourcing. This particular lecture talks about tools and techniques that we use in supply management to enhance value of the firm. We're going to go through several of the tools that might be handy in your careers as well. But let me set the stage primarily by using an executive briefing that we typically use in the class. This one comes from Supply Chain Brain, and it's an interview with one of the executives at Gartner. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be starting up right after this presentation.
The function of procurement should be about more than just getting the lowest price from your organization. How do you get real quantifiable value from procurement? That's the topic of my conversation today with Mickey North Rizza, Research Director with Gartner. Mickey, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much.
It's always good to have you back.
Thank you.
So what about this issue of really getting real value? What is real value in terms of procurement?
It's really about delivering shareholder value. And when you get down to it, it's really about looking and improving your overall gross margins. It's helping lower your overall cost of goods sold. It's making a difference in working capital, lowering your inventory values, looking for shorter order to cash cycle times, helping your suppliers bring the real product into the market on time so you can be a success in a given and new market and your company is thriving and surviving. So the point is, it has to make a difference that is seen in the numbers, makes a major impact, and allows your company to grow and bring in more revenue by reducing, yes, the overall cost to some of the points that procurement has looked at for years and years, but it's tying it back into those overall numbers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to talk about bottom line value, very often people think of that as just the lowest price. Get me the lowest price, and next year get me an even lower price.
That's exactly
But you're talking about something that goes deeper than that. You're talking about kind of a game-changing approach to procurement. So could you be a little more specific about what that entails other than just getting the best price?
Absolutely. So
there's another excerpt to this that I wanted you to see. She particularly talks about some tools and the techniques. So let's listen to this part.
yes, it is about that gross margin and the cost of goods sold. But what are the numbers that you're actually bringing in? What is it that you're really delivering the value on? Are you lowering inventory numbers? Are you shortening the order to cash cycle time? When you bring down those costs, are they making a difference in the margins? Is it just on new products? Is it on current products? And what do you do with end-of-life products where you have to make those warranty trade-offs and decisions around the costs and the value of perhaps carrying the inventory just to satisfy end-of-life products? And then the last area that we're seeing is around technology. Some of the best companies out there are still getting 10 and 15%, in many cases low-hanging fruit, around some of the sourcing segments that they're looking at, the categories and that they're trying to take costs out. When they add in demand planning techniques, they can even get more value. We see those using advanced technologies around optimization techniques and trying different theories and even into predictive analytics, that they're actually doing two things there. They're taking out an additional 10 to 12% just on the cost by using some of those techniques. And further to that, they're able to actually predict where those suppliers are going to be in the future, so that it helps them from the original sourcing exercise to get on to the next avenue. So it really is about bringing these 6 areas together, understanding that they're all integrated, and they do deliver real quantifiable value. But it's putting the mix and the blend together for the right team and building it now and taking you into the future.
Well, it sounds like you're calling for nothing less than a paradigm shift, not just within procurement, but all.
Okay, well, So really what she's talking about is bringing value to the organization, and that's what this chapter is about. We're going to talk about some of the tools that we use to provide value. And the first one I'm going to be talking about in this part of the lecture, and then another recording will follow, is value analysis and value engineering. And we'll also get into quantity discount analysis. Value analysis and value engineering have been around for some time. They both involve examining elements of components assembly and end products to make sure that it really meets the intended function, no more and no less, alongside with total cost. Meaning that we don't want to pay too much for something when we don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that it's not less than what we're hoping to get from it. So really value is a combination of function and cost. Function divided by cost provides us with the value. Now, who is involved in value analysis and value engineering? Typically, the executive management gets involved. Suppliers, of course, get involved because they provide the components. There's supply management, folks internally that get involved. And much of the value engineering side gets to be on the shoulders of design engineers, and so they get involved. On the value analysis side, marketing certainly gets involved, as well as the value engineering side. But particularly when it comes to making the items, production and industrial process engineering have to be involved. The whole idea here is, again, looking at each of the components, looking at each piece and the entire system of what we're selling to the end consumer, and make sure that it actually does provide a value. So how do we do this? Or how do we test for it? Does the product contribute value to our customers, right? So in other words, do we have the necessary buttons on a cell phone, no more and no less? And does the number of radio stations that are in the car essentially meet the expectation of the consumer? Is the engine or the differential or any other part providing too much and that the customer is not necessarily needing or expecting? Similarly, with the cost of the final product, is it proportionate to its usefulness? Are we really getting $20,000 worth of a car, or should we be more price-driven, or perhaps the other way around? And value engineering also looks at ways where a product can become useful, right? So moving away from cars and into adhesives, oftentimes there are adhesives that have multiple purposes. Some of, believe it or not, there are adhesives that are not so sticky, and they have very valuable purposes for things that we want to attach to one another, but for a short time frame. And do we need all the parts and features for a particular item? Again, going back to the cell phones, for instance, is it necessary to have two cameras on the front and the back? And is the customer willing to pay? Weight is a big deal when it comes to value, particularly because weight means that we have to pay for shipping and carry it around. Weighty items also lend themselves to more damage. So, if we can reduce weight, we've gained quite a bit. And in terms of production method, there are there other methods that we can use? Are there new equipment, for instance? Is there better ways to go about it? So that essentially is in terms of determining, again, lower cost standard and replacement of those can that help us reduce the cost, and in terms of process, the proper use of proper tooling, for instance. So you can see a lot of focus on cost here, but that's because we can easily measure it, and that also allows us to determine how much of analysis is necessary on the value part. Let me jump to another important aspect, and that is the process associated with value analysis. And for this one, what is necessary is, of course, we need to gather information, right, both from the customer side and from the supplier side, to make sure that the components and the pricing and the process to put them together are all lined up. Then we basically speculate or provide different ideas. If can we use a thinner bottle to make or to carry bottled water all the way through the process, or are we lending ourselves to possibility of damage because of trucking and because of heat and whatever else. So then we analyze, we test, and then there's a recommendation execution as the basis of it. And so the value analysis process is essentially an ongoing event. Most of the time these days with new products, when they come out, there are some associated additions, safety factors, etc., that are put in over time, be it Toyota Camrys or be it the next generation televisions, all of which go through value analysis and value engineering these days. And so the rest of the next few slides actually talk about the different stages. For instance, in the gathering of information, we need to make sure that we fully understand what the product does for the customer, and the reasons behind customers' need for buying the product. There's always primary and secondary functions to a product, right? We buy a car because we want to get from A to B, but a car also becomes has other purposes as well, right? Listen to music inside the car, right? Enjoy scenery or whatever else it might be. Same thing with the phone, same thing with the television, etc., etc. So what are those primary and secondary functions? And the reason we do that is because we certainly don't want to value engineer away any primary functions that the customer is particular about. And as a result, we end up with detailed information about the product. In the speculation stage, there's creative thinking, what folks end up calling brainstorming and otherwise, but it's wide open and no idea is a bad one. And through brainstorming and idea creating techniques, we come up with ways to think about how else a product can be made with better purpose, better value for the customer, and how we can improve the ideas. For instance, I know for a fact that these days, manufacturers have gone down the path of actually putting the fog lights in their front panel as part of the bumper. Well, that actually is value engineering because you don't necessarily have to have separate parts. And by having the fog lights inside the bumper, it makes assembly and production much easier. So that I'm pretty sure that must have been part of some type of a value analysis stage. So then we analyze. The analyze stage, number 3 stage, to perform critical evaluation of the ideas to see which ones make sense. And of course, there's cost-benefit analysis to it, and whether the idea is actually feasible or not. And of course, do the ideas meet the original goals? If they're not helping the customer in enhancing their needs and therefore providing us with additional revenues and or reducing costs, then perhaps there's no merit in pursuing it. So we're moving from general to more specific. We're moving from ideas that are more broad-based to specific applications of. And then, of course, there's a recommendation and execution stage where we figure out what are the priorities. If we want to make the cell phone better, do we go after making room for a bigger battery, for instance, by reducing the size of the plastic that goes around the battery, for instance, in the cell phone, or do we go after perhaps a more efficient LED lighting for the front screen? So priorities, which ones are we better off in terms of cost and in terms of revenue from the customer? And then, of course, there's a proposal to management, and a lot of this requires quite a bit of tenacity and the ability to see what could be possibly done. And so value engineers, which includes purchasing managers because they're heavily involved in this, does require quite a bit of willingness to make changes. But the bottom line effects, be they price or enhanced production, enhanced sales, is quite prevalent, quite easily seen, and so it becomes known by the executives quite easily. And of course, then there's the, we got to figure out the timing and the budget requirements for it. So I'm hitting right around 15 minutes. I'm going to pause this portion of the presentation, and we'll follow up with another one right after.